my private company can do whatever it wants. That's the straw man saying that a lot of people who are strategic ANCAPs, as a fellow YouTuber V likes to say, they're strategic ANCAPs in the way that they've basically say that these companies are private companies. And in one such instance today, the notorious right wing watch, who basically just argues for banning everyone that they don't like, were banned from YouTube. And isn't it ironic that the people, don't not realizing, and of course they're not going to have the self awareness to understand that the private company is not so private, right? A lot of these companies, people don't understand that Google, Facebook, YouTube. YouTube is part of Google, but Google, Facebook, and Twitter, Amazon, all of them either have partnerships with the government or they work in some capacity hand in hand with the government, and that's part of like corporate cronyism, and that's something that has existed for a while, but just people just don't understand that it is not indicative of a free market. And when people make the argument of my private company can do what it wants, do whatever it wants, then a lot of them are thinking that they can operate a business however you want. No, you can't. No, you can't. You cannot operate your business however you want. There are strict building codes. There are strict guidelines around food and health services. There are strict, doctors can't do whatever they want. Otherwise, they may just chop somebody's leg off, and you don't know what's going to happen. There are a lot of regulations, a ton of regulations. There's all kinds of pages and pages of regulations that are hampering, in a lot of ways, the creativity and competition within the market. And yes, are some of those protections good guidelines? They may make for good guidelines, right? Essentially, good ideas that, generally speaking, I don't want to eat just completely raw meat for when I go to a restaurant. I expect them to cook it correctly. There are plenty of things that go into this process of understanding and thinking about what companies can and can't do. And in a lot of ways, yes, if you had a ultimate free market, then these companies would be allowed to do things. They would be able to, ban you for whatever reason. They would be able to do a lot of this. But whenever they're operating with public tax dollars in basically in service of the public, and especially whenever they offer their service, to everyone free of charge, and the reason that's the reason they can ban you, is because they can't offer you they don't offer you a paid subscription. Because if I pay for cable, and they just cut the cable off on me while I'm paying for the service, then they are liable for a load of litigation coming their way, because I paid for the service, and if they are not, even service interruptions, a lot of times people will get compensation. If your internet was out for like a week, you technically can sue the company, because their whole purpose is that they're supposed to keep that up and running with as little downtime as possible. And if it hampers your business because you're an online business, then technically you can sue them for some damages. Of course, that's kind of litigious, and that's kind of the nature of like American legal system, is that it's at least in the civil sense, that it's very litigious. Having trouble saying that word, but it's people bring up a lot of litigation in regards to different things that companies will do, and a lot of times it changes policy, and we've seen that with like the baker, things like that. He's being forced to make the cake, and and that's That's unfortunate, but in the way that we're operating, we're not a free market. We are beholden to the government in some way. Every company is beholden to the government in some way, and we saw that with the pandemic. And I really hope that that would open people's eyes up to that these are not really private companies. They're not really operating in your best interest, because if we had a free market and everything was equal, then whatever the corner store that was the alternate, like if you have your corner store and then you have the Walmart is considered essential and the corner store was not. So why did the corner store not be allowed to enter into the realm of competition? They would be able to compete with Walmart, presuming that they have the same goods, right? Presuming that the corner store has the same goods as Walmart, both of them should be able to remain open and be considered essential businesses in that sense. But they weren't. They were just treated differently. Certain restaurants that weren't big chains, if you had your small business, your tiny restaurant that you opened, blood, sweat, and tears, and then you were shut down. But then the McDonald's was always allowed to run. All the big businesses were allowed to stay open, and it's because of the corporate cronyism. Basically, they have their money, they line the pockets of the politicians, and that's why it's funny whenever someone says like Chick-fil-A donated to X politician, or whatever company donated to Y politician. Essentially, they're just trying to make sure they get theirs. And I'm sure if you look at all of the records, there's probably donations to both campaigns, right? Because they want whoever wins to help them maintain their dominance in the market, right? McDonald's still wants to be a juggernaut at the end of the day. Walmart still wants to be a juggernaut. Amazon still wants to be a juggernaut. None of them want to relinquish their positions, and they won't go into the night quietly. And so take the build your own argument, for instance, and that's one of the common retorts, right? The common retort to my private company could do what it wants, and then build your own, build your own Twitter or whatever, and someone did, but then it got banned from all those other connected services, banned from Amazon Web Services. So then they had to find a new provider, and now that website isn't really doing well, but they still are allowed to be there, but it's still more difficult because of the anti-competitive nature of Silicon Valley. And you could say the same for anything else, right? All of them are all big corporations, okay? When it gets to be a big corporation, big mega corporation, when your business gets to that size, I can almost guarantee that you're going to be anti-competition, because when you swallowed up all your competition, you really want no competition ever. At that point, it's like if Usain Bolt, he goes into a race, like if he won one race and then he said, because he won the one race, and then he basically says, like, I never want to lose again, right? And say that he decides to enhance himself, and he has an advantage over the competition, right? And he says, hey, judges, I'm the winner. Let's make this more legal. Like, let's make all of what I want to do legal. Let's make my form of cheating legal. And that's basically kind of how our business operates in a lot of ways. The corporate culture, the corporations, all of them, they work in a tandem, and they work basically to squeeze as much dollars out of the average American, while also really doling out as little as they have to, right? And that's not just saying, like, I'm not necessarily saying like that Walmart workers are necessarily underpaid or what have you. Your cashier, they get, I would say they get fairly compensated, especially now that Walmart has been upping their rates for hourly wages for hourly workers. But the overall mentality is that they're going to all work in tandem, and they're all receiving benefits from the government. If you look at it, a lot of the big businesses were able to take advantage of the small business loans, and they were able to basically get millions of dollars in loans from the federal government when they had they weren't part of it. They didn't have any skin in the game because they were an essential business. There were other businesses that just by default got bailed out by the government. We've seen this happen time and again. Business fails because it's a business that they really need to succeed or they need to have around. The government will bail them out. The government has bailed out the auto industry. The government has bailed out the banking industry. The government has bailed out the, now the airlines and cruise lines because all of those were shut down during the pandemic. And the more and more that you look at that, and the more and more that you see that none of these businesses are able to act as private entities. None of them. They all act in public interest, in the interest of the state itself, and they don't act as individual entities. They're all a sort of a cartel. They all act like they're in together. They do the same things. They say the same things. Why do you think that they all kind of homogenize around the same ideas? It's not by nature, right? It's not because it's the popular thing, right? Because I don't think necessarily that it's the popular thing. And if it is, I'm really concerned. But generally speaking, when they have this behavior, it's not conducive to a free market. And by very nature, in my mind, that they are no longer private companies. When there is anti-competition, when there is when there's an anti-competitive nature and anti-creative nature, because creation, like creativity and competition are nature, like by nature, part of a free market, right? You can create something new, you can compete against the big boys, and then you can actually have a way of building up yourself in the society and competing as your business against all the other businesses, right? So essentially, it's like, what if everything was like our fast food industry? Our fast food industry, we have several options, right? You can get your Taco Bell, you can get your McDonald's, you can get Burger King, you can get any number of restaurants, right? And they're all going to be in your city. You're gonna be able to choose from those restaurants, and you have those options available to you. But whenever government typically intervenes more heavily, the industries that are really hurt by this are like airlines. How many airlines do we have? There's like maybe a handful of airlines that exist. So if you wanted to build your own airline, you would need insane amounts of capital to be able to compete, and you'd have to basically dedicate your life's work to building that up, and it would be nigh on impossible. Now, I'm not saying that there's not someone out there that could do it, that there's no one out there that could do it, but by nature, there isn't going to be much competition in that way. So if a business is demanding that you bow down and operate in the way that they see fit, like for instance with the passports to get a jab, if a airline wants to require you to do that, then they're free to do so, I guess, but it's definitely going to be ostracizing people from society if all airlines follow suit. And that's just going to be a dystopian society. And I don't want to live as a part of a dystopian society. So if they all operate as a cartel and they're all bought by the government, because let's be honest, the government bailouts are essentially a form of buying them out in some way. Whenever these things happen, you cannot say that they're just private companies acting in solitude, right? Because if one company did it, another company could choose not to ban it, or not to ban you or not to do things. But all of them act in coercion, and so there's no way that you can reasonably say that these companies are private companies and can do whatever they want. That's sort of my spiel for the day. Hope you got some out of this. If let me know what you think. I really want to know what everybody else thinks. Can private companies just do what they want, even if they take billions of dollars from the government, even if they are working hand in hand, coordinating with the government. Is that just how it's going to be? Is corporate cronyism, just okay in your mind if you just think private companies are okay? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. That's all I had for the video. Please check the links in the description. I'm going to have some links to my other social media pages where I stream over on Vim and Twitch. Please check that out. And I also have some, crypto wallet addresses. If you're just feeling generous, feel free to send some crypto my way. I'm definitely supporting crypto in every way possible. So that being said, that's all for the video. Have a nice day. This is Trey50 Daniel signing out.